The points that we're going to be covering today, we are going to be talking a lot about backend. So how a front end application will communicate with backend, and sort of how does that client server architecture actually looks like, what exactly are APIs, how does the information that is sent from the server to the front end with the help of JSON or object structures, what exactly they are, some of the tools where you can actually test your APIs, including Postman, and we'll be also showing you some hands-on examples of how to utilize APIs in order to fetch some kind of data onto the front end and display it. So these are some of the key things that we'll be covering today. So with that in mind, over to you, Raghav. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Shiva, for the introduction as well as explaining all the points that we will be covering. So yeah, let's get started with today's module. So we will be majorly focusing on how we will be integrating all the APIs with the front end as well as how to we will be communicating with the back end and different type of stuff. So we will be performing multiple steps to how we can store our data as well as how we can retrieve our data. So like before starting, so we would be having some concept that we have to keep in mind before proceeding. So initially starting with what is communication. So this is the basic step. So how we will be reaching the extensive like the web of how web page just communicate with the server. So starting with the basic definition of what is communication. So as usual, if you have a group, so basically one friend talk to us, and then we have, so basically we have a conversation go on like that. Hey, how are you? So that reply come on, I am fine. And we will be discussing about a particular topic or something. So we have a particular conversation going on between a group. So this is basically someone is asking a question or they are requesting a query from you, and you are basically responding to that. So basically we will be focusing on that, and the same way how we generally communicate in the real life. So that's how computers and internet communicate with each other. So basically if we have created a server, and that's basically locally, so a computer can also communicate with one application to other, or we can also communicate from one computer to another computer. Also that computer can be within a room or in a city or in a country or can be worldwide. And also like as astronaut go outside earth, so basically within the exploration of space. So that's why a communication should be happen between both of like with us too as well as with from their end too. So basically that's how we are communicating with each other. And similar way how internet is so useful for these type of communication. So basically internet is a medium over which we communicate things from one end to other. So that's why our server can be either in US or in any city of India, and our device is, for example, we are in New Delhi. So basically, our PC can be in New Delhi, and they would be communicating with the server in US. So that's how, like, as I've shown you an example of how we just type the IP address or the domain like google.com, and we can see a page show up on our screen, like the Google homepage, where we can search through the stuff. So that's how a communication begin. Like we are on a browser, so browser requests something from the Google server, and Google server in response give back a whole web page along with some designing, along with some functionality like on click or like searching ability and much stuff. So that's how they are communicating with each other. So coming over, so we will be basically talking about server communication. So we have at the base level, so we have two type of communication that we can see in our daily day-to-day life. So basically the first one is the single-sided communication. So if you are in a simple e-commerce site, so we can take an example of e-commerce site. So basically you click on a screen and uh, you just like a bag. So basically you click on add to cart, and that bag is being taken to your cart, and then further uh, continuing by like adding up the address, and again by clicking on the payment information, and then having a delivery come up to our doorstep. So the process behind these all are a simple single-sided communication. So basically, browser request to the server, like I want to add this particular item to my cart. So they just took that item and put in it into your cart, and again with further of the information. And again, we have the second type of communication, that is bi-sided communication. So we have a simple overlay system about this, like client request from server, and now in bi-sided communication, server can also request from client. Now what I meant by this is, for example, in single-sided communication, so we have a simple request and response, like overlay type of thing. Like a client just hit a request, like we are on the browser, and I have just typed I want to search for this thing. So basically browser has given a command, particular command with some query, like I want to search for a bag, to the server, and the server have all the database access as well as all the query or functions available on the server. So basically that server processes all the requests as well as all the query, and then they have the database, they search in that database, and further they just give all the response and all the bags that are available at the in the database on to the front end or the browser that are being visible over there. So basically it is a single sided communication where browser requests from server, and bi-sided communication is now we can take example of chat application like WhatsApp or Signal. So basically what it does is, if you have sent a data like a message to your friend, so basically at that particular instance of time the message should be visible on their screen too. So how this happen is, we just transfer a particular message to our server, so that message just go back to go to the server, and then that browser make create a new request, and then that request is being sent to client, and then the client respond back that I got the new message, and the new message is available to be displayed. So then that message is being displayed over the client screen, the another friend screen. So that's how single-sided is the one-way communication. A server cannot access the data of the front end, but in the bi-sided communication, front server can also request the client to handle some of the information and give it back to the server. So how these are used basically, so we have different type of protocols to be used. So in single sided, so we have a traditional HTTP, that is hypertext transfer protocol, as well as HTTPS protocol, to basically have a common type of transmission of data from client to server. So HTTPS means simple hypertext transfer protocol, secured. So we have some encryption layer over it, and our data is being encrypted at the client end, and then go back sent to the server, and there it is being decrypted. So basically our data is safely stored within the server. So in bi-sided communication, so we use WebSocket. So they have generally have two type of protocol, that is WS WebSocket and WSS WebSocket secured. So again, that's the same concept of how secured worked in HTTP, but it the only difference is now the server can also access can request the data from the client. So basically having a bi-sided communication with each other. So this is the bi-sided communication that we generally have in our day-to-day life. Like we request something to other, and they send back the response, and they can also ask some question. So in single-sided communication, so I can only ask question, but the other person cannot request something. So again, having an example of simple REST APIs or simple form that are visible over the screen in the single-sided communication, like we enter my when I enter my name in a address form, and I enter my address along with some mobile number and click on submit, then that request is being sent to the server, and that server just stored that information in the database. And in the bi-sided communication, so both of them can request the data from each other. So coming to the next point, so basically, if we are initializing with how we will be integrating APIs uh, with our front end along with the HTML document or JavaScript. So basically, we have to recall the idea that about in the previous module that we have discussed about the concept of object as well as arrays. So I would be having again recalling you the idea. So how objects in array are different from each other and some basic concepts. So getting back to mm, VS Code or not VS Code. So we can initialize this as just go to these thoughts again more tools. So these are the developer tools that we will be using in the modules. So mm, go to the console tab. So this is the basically the main JavaScript console in which all the JavaScript code run and interpret, and then the output would be visible. So a basic example would be alert. So as I've given in the previous module, so alert give us a pop-up on the browser. So hi. So when I hit enter, so alert would be visible. So this is a simple function. So returning to recalling about the concept of how objects in array are made. So basically, and how they are used. So we have a simple term. So const mean we are declaring a constant, and again these are available in the new JavaScript version, that is ECMAScript. So I will be giving a particular name like new object followed by a curly braces, and then I would be giving this contain a key value pair basically. So the values are fetched by key. So I would be giving the name as key. So if I want to recall a particular name, so my name is Raghav, and separating by comma if I want to give other keys too. So for example, my email ID is simple abc at google.com, and then returning the simply closing the object by simple closing curly braces. So this is how I have declared a object. So how if I want to get a name, so what I will do is I will just type the object that I've created along with the variable name. So basically that return me a particular object. So I can also expand that object that's being returned, and I can uh, rather retrieve the information that is available in these key. So how can I, if I want to get the name, so I will be just writing a new object dot name. So that would return me my name, as well as if I want to, there is another notation. So how I can approach to this name. So this is the term that I've used is this is dot notation, and there is another block notation. So that have that's followed by a simple new object without any dot. So we would be having a block parenthesis having the particular key name inside it. So basically when I click enter, so again the name is being returned, and if I want to get ID, so basically new object dot email ID. So this is the dot notation as well as this is the block notation. So in this two type, so we can basically get our data. So again, how why we are using these two notation. So again, that would be again you will be cleared in the upcoming time. So in this module only. So basically, if I again check the type of this particular new object, so again this the type of this variable is an object. So again, so having a basic clarity of how object look like, and again the object can also contain a numerous number of objects. So if I just write a is equal to, so again let my key would be x, X value is 1. Then again there is another key Y that again contain an object. So that have a key name, then have name Raghav. So again that can have another set of object, and then it can either have array object, it can have numerous number of values. Also can also have functions. So basically I have another variable or another key Z, so that denotes an array of 1, 2 and 3, and then closing the object by simple uh, closing curly braces. And then how can I get the name? So I would be writing just a dot, so iterating over these key value pairs. So in X that contain the value 1. So again my name would won't be fetched through X. So I would be iterating toward Y. So yeah, I can get my name toward Y. But how I can get my value Raghav from this object? Again, so I would be writing A that denotes this object variable name. Again, following by the key Y. So that return me a object. So again, recalling back to the previous thing that we have done earlier. So this a dot y is almost similar to the new object that we have created. So again, we can fetch this name element by typing a dot y dot name. Again, at this point of time, we have successfully retrieved the name that is available within this object. And now what if I want to get this two? So going back to the concept of array, so I would be declaring an array, new array. So this contain a particular one, like
Raghav, could you just
one.
increase the size of your browser if it's possible?
Okay, now it must be good. Sorry for the small text size. So basically explaining from the initial instance. So basically what I have done is created a simple object. So in second instance, I have just retrieved the value of the object. So what is the value of object is this particular uh, key value pairs enclosed within the curly braces. So when I expand this object, so we have a first key name email ID that contain a particular my email ID value, and the second contains the name key and the name value. And again, if I want to fetch my name from this object, so what I will do is I would be just writing the object variable name along with the dot mean I would be iterating within the object, and again I would be writing it the key in which the value is given. So that return new object dot name, which means value Raghav would be visible over the screen. And another way of doing this is again calling it by the bracket notation. So this is the dot notation, so representing by dot name, and this is the bracket notation. So bracket notation do have a simple like uh, simple double inverted comma or single inverted comma along with, so representing it as a string. So how it is being different, so I would be getting back to this topic in this module only after a while. So when I just click on type of the object, so basically the type is object only. So again, object can be have another object in itself. So they can have child object. So how can I access this value within the object's value? So again, writing it as a dot y that return me a object. So this is similar to the previous notation that we have written. So again, to get my name, so I would be writing a dot y that correspond to this object, and again dot name. So again that correspond to the name. So a dot y dot name. So you can compare a simple objects in JavaScript to hash maps if you studied in C or C++ or Java. So basically, hash map has the key value pair, and they run in O of one complexity. So basically, you can compare this particular variable data type to hash maps. So this is the most common data type that we will be using in JavaScript, and this is the base concept of how API would be working. So that's why I am re-explaining this whole concept. So basically, we would be using these concept only in this module. So how we would be recalling the main idea of integrating APIs to our HTML document. So basically having another variable name as new array. So I would be declaring it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I would be closing with the simple bracket, square brackets, and again, when if I want to get any of the value. So I can perform numerous amount of operation in this array. So basically I can iterate over each and every element of array by just writing a simple for loop, like let I is equal to 0, I should be less than this new array length. So basically how I want to get, how can I get the whole length of the array? So by writing dot length. So length is a keyword within the array. So this length is not there in the objects or functions. This is only available in strings as well as arrays. So again, I should be incremented. So what is does this? So basically, I initial value of I is 0, and then I should be less than. This is a simple type of loop that I want to iterate over each and every element of this array. So how I can represent every element of array is, so basically I would be consoling. I would be printing all the values. So basically, I would be writing new array denoting by a then succeeding by a curly braces. Oh, simple square bracket. Sorry, and following by the index number. So I represent the main index number. So starting by 0. Array always start with 0, then the second index would be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So the last index would be 4. So uh, array dot length would return 5 because we have 5 elements in this array, but I want to get the index. So how the loop would be running? So initial value would be 0 along like succeeding by 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. When it reaches 4, it checks the value. So 4 is always less than 5, correct? So it will go in this particular uh, block, and it will execute the particular condition. But then when I is iterated, so now I the value of I is 5. So this time 5 is not less than 5. 5 is equal to 5, but it is not less than 5 at this instance of time. So our condition get false. So the condition, this iteration or block would not executed. So basically I would be writing the index, simple index denoting by this square bracket along with the index, and then I would be closing this and closing this for loop. When I hit enter, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have iterated over each and every element. So when I again uh, display array, so what I get is a simple array denoting by the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 along with the values, along with the length that we are getting. So the total length of array is 5, along with these are index, and the left hand side are the index, then having a light blue color, and the right hand side that is available in the purple color. So these are the simply values in the array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now if we check the type of new array, so this again come an object, but it should return an array. If uh, someone has thought about of this, so basically there are no concept of array in JavaScript. So array in JavaScript are basically special type of objects only. So if you recall our idea that we have done, so I have already created an object along with I have created a new array. So again expanding these two values. So these two have something in common, basically having key value pairs if you denote. So having Like if we are writing email ID, so this denote key, and again we have the value. Again, if you like compare this to an array, so we have this index as a key and we have this as a value. And again, if you compare this concept to like the term that we have used along with the dot and as well as the block notation. So in arrays, so we have used the block notation along with denoting this string as a particular index number. So that return us the value. So this is why we can use these type of notation within the same objects. So again, denoting by a particular array. So array are the special kind of objects. So this have to be kept in mind. So again, if uh, I have declared a variable a with basically having a key value pair of x, y, z. So basically, again, by clicking on a dot z, that return us an array. So a dot z dot, or and like I cannot write dot zero. It will throw an error. As in dot notation, we cannot use number or any unused variables. So basically, how I can type it as, so basically denoting a particular length. So that return me a one. So that's why we are using a block notation instead of a simple dot notation for using this type of for handling this type of stuffs. So again, we have iterated and recalled our whole concept of how we are using this. We have discussed about how objects in array are covered and how we will be creating that. And now coming toward the JSON. So what is a JSON? So basically, while we are working with the API, so these are the very lightweight data format. So if I want to transfer, if a browser requests something from the server, so basically server just send back some data after being processed. So what type of data is being sent from the server? That is nothing but JSON. So JSON is a common type of data transfer format, but like there are many other format too. Like we can send data in a simple string number, or like even we can create some XML document we can send back to them, and also like we can throw a simple CSS file, JS file along with some HTML web pages, or it can be images, it can be any stuff. But basically what type of data is being contained within a simple API. So basically the simplest form of APIs in today's generation that we will be using is the JSON. That's nothing but JavaScript object notation. So that means the concept that we have studied right now, like how we will be creating objects and arrays. So that the JSON is being derived from that application. So basically, JSON is an application of objects and array. So that's why its name is JavaScript object notation. So basically, we have the particular notation in the form of objects as well as array. So this is a particular example. So how a JSON would be looking like. So just we have a common difference. So instead of having a simple key value pair, so the key do also have the uh, double inverted commas as in this example. But in JavaScript, again, we can declare in this format also, and also we can simply declare in without inverted commas. So again, JSON is very lightweight in terms of while we are transferring the data from the server to the client, so that client can again be having some iteration over it, and again would be fetching all the information and displaying over it. Again, we will be having a hands-on session on how we can integrate all the API coming from the backend. Again, JSON is easily understandable and again anyone can read it. As you can see in this example, we have this particular object again, discussing about the simple key value pair, how we can get to a particular value. If I want to get the user ID, so what I will do is So getting back to this object, so I would be storing this particular object in a variable, then calling that variable dot d dot results. So in the results, so we have an array. So I would, this is the first element, so I would be writing, I would be taking the index 0, denoting by enclosed within the close bracket. So again, I would be fetching, I would be getting this object, so I would be writing dot user ID. So it's a bit complex process, but generally the JSON is simplified as in terms, so we can perform a same kind of function each and everywhere in the code while we are designing in front end as well as in the back end. So we have the common type of structure, all of that. So I would be representing that too. And again, comparing it to JSON, oh, JSON to XML. So XML stands for Extensible Markup Language, same as HTML. Like it do have a tree structure. So for example, so how this can be read as, so basically, let me increase the screen size. Yeah. So basically, the document itself start from .xml along with some version or other stuff too, like encoding in itself. So then proceeding by what this document would be containing. So we have a bunch of data. So again, that can have employees, then employee contain, again, as we are having, you can compare this whole document to a simple HTML tags and values. So again, in childhood while being in school, so you definitely must have read about what XML is. XML is used for storing data, but how we can visualize in the real life, but no one has explained us. So that's why like you comparing all the HTML document to this. So basically, the API do through this particular XML document, and we have to decrypt the whole document. We have to fetch the value, and again, we would be having the value fetch from these tree structure. So it sometime bit messed up at the front end side as well as creating the whole document. But how we can compare this XML to the simple JSON that we are talking about? So what it do is, so we have simple employee sheet. So we in the employee, so we have simple employee and having an ID of one. Again, we would be employee. Yes. So not every tag should be, if I am creating a tag, so that tag should be ended. We can create multiple type of tag, but that tag should be contain a similar amount of similar data. Again, if I have written this employee, and again, if I can do this to have a bit more clarity. So basically, I have started an HTML document. I am creating an employee list, and I have created the first employee having a name of Raghav. Then we can have other type of data in it, again with mobile number, address, and pin code and city. We can have multiple type of stuff, and we can also map uh, within it. We can have numerous number of trees as well as child uh, tags within it. Again, name, we can denote first name, last name. We can create another tags, but this is a simple example. So again, this is a employee 2 with a new ID. Again, this is a new XML document, as you can see. So it is now a bit clear. So we have Shivai with an ID too. So this is a simple format of how an XML document would look like and how values are being contained within it. And now if we compare this whole XML object to an array or to the JSON that we are talking about. So what we would be writing it as, we would be creating a simple object denoting by these curly braces, hitting enter. And I just would be writing this employee list and followed by a simple colon. So now the number of employees that we have here denotes a particular array. So this is an array of index 0, index 1. So we can basically just type it as an array. It contains a particular list of employee that we have. And again, we can create a particular by hitting enter. So again, we have some data type like we have ID, we have name. So what we can denote it as, like we can again we can compare it to a simple object. So having simple object like structure. So it can be an array of simple number. It can be array of objects. Of again, we can have array of objects of array of objects. So we can have multiple iteration, but the whole document and must be have the similar data if we are using this. So again, getting back to our current scenario, so we have an employee object with an ID one and name as Raghav, and we again have the second employee as ID2 and name as Shiva. So while we are looking this and comparing it to this whole structure, so obviously this JSON object is much more, we can rely on it's reliable, it's more readable. Like if we want to have a employee list, so it is denoting that it's a list, it's an object, we can directly fetch the object by using this dot notation or object notation. So that's how we are using this particular kind of stuff while we are transferring data from the server. And again, it's within the O of one complexity. So that's why we are having the high speed of fetching all the information if we are taking data from these objects or structures. So while talking about array, obviously it would be having, we have to iterate over each element while displaying. So as we have a number of elements within this list, if we have 1,000 elements, so definitely it would take a time to render. But if we have a smaller amount of time, so definitely we would be taking the least amount of time while displaying. So this is how we are comparing the messy uh, XML document to this JSON object. So here, what I mean by messy is this type of stuff. So it is a bit weird to see. So this is not Messi, the football player. Yeah. So coming back to our module. So we have till now compared how JSON structure would be look like, uh, how they are more reliable and easily understandable while we are comparing to other data type format that we are basically traditionally used for transferring the data. Now coming toward the main point, like that's the API. API stand for simply application programmable interface. So basically that something complex to remember at first instance, like so what it meant by is, so basically API is nothing but for example you have two different application, so how they can communicate with each other or in general life. So you can compare to, I am a simple human and uh, my friend is standing beside me. So how we can talk to each other? So we have a common language. So I am transferring all my information in a particular language, and that person can understand my language. So the language is one thing that I'm communicating with. So I can either use verbal language or I can do action, or it can be if uh, the other person is blind, so we can uh, do a braille language, or we have multiple kind of stuff through which we can communicate. So API allow us to communicate with each other. So that's how we can compare these two person to the server and the client architecture. So client is a single application that we are seeing, and the server is another application. So how they can communicate with each other? So they should have a proper medium over which they can communicate. So that medium is being provided by APIs. So API is nothing but they are just the medium that allow both application to communicate with each other. So basically having the same medium. So again, API is nothing but that having a function that are available on the server that executed and again transferred back to it. So these are like from front end we cannot access the Python code as well as C, C++, Java or any other language code, but only the browser can understand three languages: HTML, CSS, and JS. And again, if we go to server, so basically server have already the compilers for different languages as well as interpreters. So basically we can execute any type of stuff. So from requesting from client to server, and then they would be processing all the information and getting back to the server for the response. So that's how online compiler and interpreters works. So these are the one type of application that how APIs are used. And again, the most common that we would be revolving around is the REST API. So REST API is nothing but the simplest form of API that we are using within the application. So this is a single-sided uh, communication, having a client just a request from the server, and server in response perform some particular function and give back the response to the client side. That is further being displayed over the screen. So this is the API. So this is how where we will be starting our hands-on session. So how we can integrate the API in our whole document and how we can use it. So how a browser can request all the data from the server. So yeah, proceeding with the hands-on session. I believe like my VS Code would be visible. Yeah, so starting with the module 4. So if you have not covered the previous three modules, so you can definitely go to the GitHub Scalar Academy, and you can go to the December Web Dev Bootcamp, and you can just clone the whole repository along with the modules. And in each and every module there is readme what we have covered and what we have initialized with the presentation that we have used along with uh, the structure that we have done. So proceeding with the module 4. So again, that is basically concerned toward how we will be integrating all the APIs to HTML document, as well as how we can uh, have a communication setup between the front end as well as the back end. So going with, I would be creating a simple HTML document. So simple index.html. So again, going back to main.js. So these are the two lines that you can probably see over my screen. So we would be working with these two APIs. So I have previously created these two APIs. So again, going back to uh, the first one. So probably Shiva, you can paste the first API to the students.
Yeah.
So you must be getting this particular API either from YouTube chat, or you can just go to your github.com, followed by you can just type Raghav Dhingra and then just get on my repository tab and go to items API. So basically
I've
you
just
can
shared it.
see awesome. So you can see these two files. So just click on item.json and click on this row button over here. So by clicking on the row button, so you will be getting a particular URL over there. So you can just copy that URL and paste it in your Visual Studio Code or whichever code editor that you are using. So that would handle all the JSON structure that is being covered in this session. So yeah, getting back toward the index.html file. So initially I would be using this and I would be representing how we can use the another API. So in this API, we can rather have a bunch of request methods over there. So we can retrieve the data, we can post the data, we can update the data, we can also delete the data, and we can uh, have a bunch of operations performed over this API. And over this, we just want to have a look how we can integrate all the data coming from the server and how we can represent it on the front end. So I would be creating a simple document. So I would be closing this tab for a clear reference. So just by typing a simple exclamation mark. So in previous module two, I have explained about how this particular boilerplate template is appeared. So this is basically I have used a Visual Studio Code extension. So HTML snippets. So you can either just go to extension tab and just download the HTML snippets. So this one, and again closing this. So just by clicking on the simple exclamation mark and hitting enter, so a boilerplate template would be appeared. So these are some kind of hack that we can apply to basically uh, to reduce our development time and also to code faster. So basically, we don't have to make our uh, simpler tag to write again and again. So again, I would be referencing this to the simple script tag and script, and I would be connecting this main.js file to this index.html by referencing this main.js file to the main HTML document. So what I can do is denoting by the simple script tag along with the source attribute, and then I would be connecting this by simply typing main.js. And again, these two files are being connected. So how we can check this by, I would be simply printing a hello. So saving this, and I would be running this index.html file by this. So nothing is visible. So just by clicking on this three dots, then more tools, then developer tools, go back, go to the console tab. So we can display hello over there. So that represent my main.js file is being connected to my HTML document. So going back to the Visual Studio Code. So now I would be creating a simple button. So what I can do is click me, again refresh. So I have a button. So I would make a size bit larger. So I can style it as font size of 30 pixel. It's a bit larger, but inline CSS is never preferred when we are working in real life application. So what I will do is create a new CSS file, main.css. Again, I would be declaring simple class name representing my button that have a font size of like 50 pixel, let's suppose. So I would be having and giving the class name to it. Again, so I would be giving the class name btn to it. And again, for now, I would be linking the main HTML or CSS file to it by using the link tag, and then referencing that by the href attribute again by main.csn, and I would be giving attribute relevance for denoting the content of this uh, document is a style sheet representing a CSS document. And again, uh, so I have successfully linked my file and created a button. So you can see the button font size is basically 50 pixels. So I want to have a particular on click function over it. So what I will do is I would give an ID of uh, request button, and I would be referencing this particular main.js to, I would be pointing, I would be having a variable name known as request button over here, and I would be referencing this variable to the this button that I've created over here with the use of ID. So what I can do is I have a particular keyword name document that represent the whole document object that we have in this browser, or the HTML file that we will be using, and I would be getting the particular element by using this get element by ID function. So I would be passing this request button ID over here. So again, checking this whether we have successfully pointed this variable to the main tag that we have just created by printing that button over the console, hitting refresh. So basically, we have successfully linked this button to our HTML document. So now what I can do is we have multiple type of operation that we can perform. So I would be just adding an on-click listener. So initially I have written a simple dot on click over here. This time I would recommend you to have a new function that you can directly integrate with it. So basically that is add event listener. So this is a function that we would be using. So basically it have two parameters. So the first one is the type of operation or the event that we want to bind to that button. So what type of operation that I want to bind is click function. So just typing it click. So intelligence have a bunch of options available on the screen. So you can select any of these options, but I want to have the click. So I would be just clicking on this click. So the first argument that add event listener function took take is the event that we want to perform, and the second argument is the function. So the second argument is a callback function, like what operation we want to perform while when we click on this button. So basically I would be having a new function name as like request uh, items. So basically what it do is simply return an object that contain name Raghav and ID as 1. So this is, you can compare this particular object to an API. So this is a simple step how we can proceed with. So I can reference this particular function to the second argument. So if we are referencing and passing a function to another function, so basically add event listener is a function, and we have passed another function as request item. So it will execute when we click on the this request button. So this function that we are passing it within another function, so this function is known as callback function. So which means request item is a callback function. So callback function means a function that is executed when the previous function is being have been executed. So the when the first function is being when the first function has been executed, so it itself called the second function passed in the argument. So basically this is called a callback function. A function is calling back to the original function that is being passed. So again, going back to the console, hitting refresh. When I click on this button, so I get a particular response or object. So you can compare this to a API. So this is what we get in the response from an API. But this is not an API. This is a simple object. So how I can basically get a particular request? So I would be using this API. So I would be declaring a particular like item API and referencing to a value of simple string that denote the particular endpoint that I'm using. So basically in API term or the backend server side term, so this if I'm using a domain or an IP address. So basically, this is a domain, and this is the main endpoint that I'm using. So that's why. So it's a particular API. So I will be using this API. So we can use and we can call an API in three ways. So initially, either I can use the same callback functions, and again bit it not bit it's a traditional ways of how we are calling a particular function. The new concept that is being available to us is promises. So a promises is we can compare a promise to the real world application, that how we promise to each other. Like I have made a promise that I will come tomorrow with you. So if I like fulfill the promise, so I would be going with another person uh, to a area. But if I don't fulfill that promise, so basically we have created some type of we have bond breakage between our connection. So basically, next time maybe that friend won't be asking to me to go along with them. So basically, again, we are comparing this to this JavaScript concept of promises. So if the promise is fulfilled, so we would be executing a particular code. And if the promise won't be fulfilled, so that again would not be, that would be executing a catch block. So basically having a simple uh, functionality, error handling functionality. If this API returns some type of data, so we would be handling that request if by any chance the server is not working. So this API definitely will not throw any type of data. So at that instance of time, what we will be doing? So again, if you are on YouTube or any other site, so basically there you can see a try again button. Or if my net is not working, my internet is disabled or something, if you just go to any site, so basically it would take to a game like the dragon game, where you will be pressing an simple spacebar for jumping the dragon. So basically that's what internet is not working, so please connect to the internet, or there can be site is not properly responding or something. So basically, that's where error handling comes up. So when the promise is not fulfilled, so what we will be doing, and when the promise is fulfilled, when the this API returns some data, so what we will be doing. So this is the basic concept of how promises work. And the newer concept, the latest concept that we will be using is the async await. Async await is basically JavaScript is a single threaded as well as synchronous application. All the functions are basically executed at the same time, so that means synchronous. And single threaded mean it would be having a line by line, and the whole bunch of function would be running over a single plate. If we have a single plate, for example, in the real world, so I would be having that amount of food that is being placed within a single plate. I cannot just overflow that plate. And again, I would be eating from the single plate only. So that's how this JS code is being compiled, like not compiled, like interpreted within the browser. At it's an interpreted language, having run by line. And again, so basically, what async await mean? Async mean making a function asynchronous. For example, if we just hit this particular API, we just want to retrieve some data. So it definitely take some time. Either it would be as small as some 1 millisecond, 2 millisecond, or 100 millisecond, or as maximum as like infinite amount of time. Like either it can be a 10 second, 1 second. 1 second definitely it's a huge amount of time to get in response. 1 second, 2 second, 10 second, 30 seconds. So at that instance of time, what we will be doing? So we can display a load other type of code. So basically, we can execute other type of code, because that code is being dependable on the previous instance, previous data that is being fetched from the server or the API. So that's how async await are used. So now getting back to the previous concept, so we have declared a simple variable with the a simple API request, and what we will be doing is we will be requesting a simple function. So we would be having a response from it. So simple response. So what we will be doing is we have a function name as fetch. So this is the most common function to uh, having a simple request. So basically internally what it all uses is a simple XML HTTP request. So as I've stated, like we have an XML in everywhere because traditionally when browser is being made, so that only XML is used to store the data and being transferred from document to document. So basically internally we use XML HTTP request. So basically we create a new request. We have some, so XML HTTP request is a class. So we create a new class, a new object instance of this, and we pass the particular endpoint, but we then have to get the status, and we also have to pass some callback functions. So it's a bit tricky for a developer to handle all the stuff at the same time. So there's how fetch function come in play. So basically it definitely have a uh, like we just have to pass this function in order to call the in order to get all the data from the server. So internally, it definitely uses a simple XML HTTP request. And again, we just have it have a bunch of parameters that we have to pass. But for now, we just have to pass a uh, simple endpoint from which where we want to have the data to come from. So basically, instead of this whole function, that why I have created this particular variable, so I don't have to like link this particular whole string to this function. So I want to make my function as clear as possible. So I would be just referencing the the whole API endpoint to this variable item API. So I would be entering this. So what it do is it takes some time. In response, it fetched all the data and it would be displayed. But again, I have stated like when we are hitting a API or when we want to fetch the data, when we request something from the server, so it takes some time as the server requests that particular request, perform some operation and then return the data. At this instance of time, when we just hit response and I click on save and hit refresh, hit click me, so it returned me a promise. So what the promise mean is, and the promise status is pending. So what it mean is, uh, the response is have a promise class. So fetch basically returned a promise mean, still we don't know whether the our promise or the server has thrown us a response or not, since we have just sent a request but we does not get a response till now. So for now, we will be using this new async await concept. So I would be typing just async to get back the data, and now I would be writing await. So what it do is, so at initial instance of time, so it just have created a request to the server, and it has not fulfilled that, and at that point of time it has not waited for the server to get the details. So basically it has passed that particular response to this, and we have got a promise. But I want like till the server reaches to that particular uh, till the server just give back a particular response or the data. So at that point of time, only the next code should be executed. Before that, it should not be executed. So this should work in the perfectly right manner that we want to see. So basically what I do is I would be just writing, making this function asynchronous function, like the next functionality or the next function should not be run unless until the first request should be fulfilled, like the response should become. So this is a basic concept of promises, like this promise must be fulfilled in order to get the response, else it will throw some error. So basically I would be writing await. So this line would be waiting till a response come back from the server, and then execute a rest of the code. Now, when I hit save and hit refresh and then click on this button, so what I got is this particular response. So this response is what our uh, server sent back to us. But this is the not the particular response that we are looking for. So what we are looking for is when I go to this particular endpoint, so I got a object in the form of that contain a key product that have an array of products. So what here we are missing? So now we are missing. So this fetch function do have another. Uh, this fetch function do have another function to call. So basically, we want to get the data. So what we will do is we will be writing response dot JSON. So this JSON through this JSON denote this particular whole object that we are that the data is visible over there, and again that response is being stored in the data, and when we just print the whole bunch of data over there, so at this point of time we would be getting object. But for now also we won't be getting an object, as this JSON function also return a promise. So again, when I was talking about this fetch function, so fetch function do throw a promise when I, so what to resolve that, so I have written this await function. Again, this JSON function do throw a promise. So if you want to test it out, so just click on refresh, click on this. So again, we got a promise. So for resolving this type of error, this is not basically an error, but it's a simple notation that we have not waited from the previous function to be executed. So I would be just typing it as await. So hitting refresh, when I click me, so at this point of time I've successfully got all the object that contain a key product that have an array containing a bunch of product. So now, how I can use this data coming from the server and execute it in my HTML document. So it definitely contain this b- object. So again, getting back to our concept of how object and array work. So now, if I want to display this whole bunch of information to the screen, so what I would be writing it as, I would be declaring a simple paragraph denoting by a simple ID of response. And now going back to the main JS, I would be creating a new instance like paragraph response, and I would be referencing this particular variable to the paragraph that I have created. So denoting by I have created a paragraph with an ID of response. So basically, what I will be taking this, I would be taking this response, and I would be simply writing paragraph dot response. Oh, paragraph response dot inner HTML, and I would be setting it to data. Again, when I refresh the page, when I click on uh, this particular button, so we can see an object. So what does it mean is, so basically this is how an object is visible and object is converted to a string when we are basically displaying it. So what I can do is I can basically convert this particular object to a string. So how I can do is by using a simple function. I would be removing this. So I would be writing JSON denoting this particular JSON that we have dot stringify. Stringify just convert the particular JSON or the object that's being returned, and it convert into a string. So I would be passing simple data, hit clicking save, hitting refresh, and when I click on hit me, so at this point of time I've got the whole uh, information that is being returned from the server. But again, like, this is not how I am looking at. Like, user does not want a bunch of line appeared over the screen, so they does not understand how these things would be looking like. So we have to basically simplify all the stuff that are coming from the server. So at this point of time, what I will do is I would be creating a simple table. So table is much more cleaner as well as user friendly, how the data would be displaying. So again, uh, coming back to the module 2, as you can remember, so we have this tr tag, we have this cd to represent the table data within a particular row. So row represent the uh, horizontal data term representing a common type, the data type representing to a common entity, and we have a bunch of rows over within a particular table. So we have the name, and what kind of data do we have. So going back to the product, so we have a product array, so we have address, id, name, price, rating. So we can have name, id, so we can have price, we can have rating. Yeah, so we can also display any of the values. So we have this 4 value over here. And now what I will do is, so I would be giving an ID of response, and then going back to the main.js, and then instead of this paragraph, so the variable should also be looking like term specific. So what I have used, so I would be denoting the variable name to that, and again I would be copying that, and again, so again at this point of time, so I have to some type of uh, if I want to create a particular data over it, so what it would be looking like is, like, it should have a tr tag representing a table row, that again have the td tag that contain the name. So the initial one would be name, again have the 4 values, again id1, like price of 10, and again rating of 5. So, like, I'm not a product, so I would be writing pen instead of my name. Yeah, so I don't have a price. So going back to this, so this is a simple table that we would be looking upon. So I would be denoting and calling it by a simple table class, and getting back to the main.css file, I would be writing, basically denoting the table tag that is available within this table class. So I would be giving a border of 1 pixel, solid, and of black. Cool, perfect. So basically we have successfully created this table, and now we can also give some margin to it. We can give margin to the table. So we can give margin top of 10 pixel to have a simple separation between these two button as well as this table. So till this point of time, we have successfully displayed that particular. We have a pen with an ID 1, we have a price of 10 bucks, and then we have a rating 5. So now, by clicking on this, so we have, so you can see that when I have clicked on this click me, so this particular uh, this whole table has been replaced to this particular JSON object. So why it is like that? So we have denoted this table respond.inner HTML is equal to this data. Basically, we have to append the data, not we have to just replace all the data that is being available in the table. So what I will do is I would be writing plus. Plus mean we will be appending all the data that is coming from the backend to this table response. So when I click on again save, and when I click on save me, so again we have this particular table already available, and again we can see this whole bunch of information. But now I would be having the bit like styling over it. So this is now user would be going to see, and now I would be having again a new function. So what that function do is, for example, like beautifier. Like I have given a new name beautifier. So what it will return is, so again we have a simple object over here. So what that object should contain. So basically we would be referencing to this object. So we are taking into consideration about the name, ID, and price and rating. So I would be writing this name. So we have a pen, we have an ID of 1, we have another price of 10, and we have rating of 5. Okay, so what this function do is basically it add a markup or it add a particular tag. So I would be creating a new constant with the name of HTML markup. So what this will do is it will uh, basically return a simple HTML tag. So again, JS does not understand how HTML would look like. So that's why I have represented and bounded it between these two inverted commas. So rather it should be, if we are using multi-line, so rather than inverted comma, so I can use backticks. So backtick generally denotes the template literals that we are using in ES6. So this is a new concept of JavaScript. So how we can display a particular string. So we can have uh, the particular tr tag. So I want to append all the data that is coming from the server and want to display within the table. So what I want to display is this stuff. So separating it from the whole table. So this would be a response. So I've separated this stuff. So I just want this particular tag to be displayed over here. So I would be just copying and pasting this whole document, and again having a, so what this function do is it would return this particular HTML markup that we have created over here. Okay, so we till now have created a particular function, so that would intake this object and convert it to a particular markup and would return it. So now for this is for only for testing. So basically I would be referencing this. So we have template literals. If I use this backtick, so this is not a single inverted comma. So single inverted comma look like this. So backtick is just uh, at the left side of the numerical one. So basically above the tab key. So just by clicking on that, so backtick would be appeared. So I have written this. So the backtick is again as same as we are dealing with the double inverted comma or single inverted comma. Just we have a quality writing over it. So we can declare us any of the string in multi lines. So we have this advantage from the double inverted comma that we are using. So basically, I have written this particular data simple. I have created a simple document over here, and I want to replace this from the object that we are getting from. So now what I will do is, so what extra advantage this backtick provide us to is when I just click a dollar sign proceeding with the curly braces. So now I can write any JS JavaScript syntax within this two curly braces. So now what I want to do is I want to have the name. So I would be just writing object dot name. So instead of writing a name explicitly, so what it do is it have taken a reference from this particular variable that we have declared. So again, it has passed through the string that we have used. So again, copying this particular instance, so I would be writing starting by the dollar sign. So the initial instance should be, it must be in backtick format. So it must be enclosed within the backtick. We cannot use uh, by the double inverted or the single inverted commas. So again, we can declare a variable, or we can use GS syntax by this dollar sign enclosed with the code should enclose between these curly braces. Again, the object should have, the next is the ID. Again, we have the price, object dot price, and then at last we have the rating. So now I want to call this beautifier function. So this is a simple term that we will be using. So I would be passing this function over here, and I would be just appending this to the table response. When I click on save and just hit refresh, so what the click me function do is it will just basically request, it will take the response and will be capturing that, and after we get the response, so we can see a simple object or a simple new data entry over this table, but it would be displaying this single object that we have created over here. So by clicking on this, okay, rating is not defined and at line number. Okay, so basically we have to write it as object dot rating. So again, we have to reference to the object. Again, when I click on this click me, so basically a new entry has been created. Now we have successfully passed our first instance. So now what we want to do is, uh, initially we have taken a reference to this common object that we are using for now. So yeah, so we have successfully integrated our API. We have used the API, and yeah, so coming back to it, so we have a bunch of developer tools that we can use while integrating and having a proper communication between the client and the server. So we initially we have the console tab as being displayed over here. So basically, if the request failed, so again an error message would pop up over this. So for example, if I would be writing the wrong request URL over here, so for example, HTTPS abcd com. So when I, this is a particular endpoint, that API point that I am requesting from. So when I hit refresh, so when I click on click me, so it throws me a response. So this is the first developer tool that we are mainly using while we are integrating all the APIs and stuff. So again, so all the error that are coming up, so that would be displayed over the screen. But if we want to get any error, so what we will be doing is having an simple exception handling. So again, that would be covered in the next session, next module. So again, we have the try, catch, uh, statements and other statement to get rid of these type of error, so that our code get on executed. So at this point of time, our code just stop where it is being, and our next entry have not been entered. But if this error does not come, so our entry will be visible over the screen. So how to get rid of this, so that would be covered in the next module. So coming back to our next developer tool, that is the network tab. So this is again the main tag that we will be using. So what type of element that is being returned from the server? So that is again being available over the screen. So if you go to this network tab, so it have a numerous amount of things that you can see over the screen, but don't be afraid of this. This is to, if I simplified this whole stuff, so what it tell is all represent all type of data, files, images, or any type of document that we are that is being sent from the server to our browser. So basically, browser download all the files to your local system, and then that is being displayed over the screen. So this is how browser just basically display everything. So what it does is when you go on all, so basically it have three type of document. So basically the first one is the HTML document that contain our code. So basically our the browser when I go to this URL, so the browser requested the HTML document along with, as we have linked two files along with it. So basically the next one is the CSS and the third one is the GS file, and that again contain what type of requests have been sent. So it have been sent a file protocol. File protocol is basically a local protocol that is being used. HTTP is over the internet. We have a bunch of protocol also. So basically it has used file protocol, and where the files are present, so that are present. So you can compare this to an endpoint. So file protocol basically take argument as the endpoint, and again that return the main HTML file, and again we have linked the main HTML file, the CSS and JS file to it. So basically the next request is this is the main request URL. So again, the browser requested this URL, and CSS file is what we get in response. So header contain all the information of what type of request and what that request contain, all the data, and response contain what we get from the server. And in the preview tab, again the same, we can beautify all the stuff, and we have a bunch of option over here, and you can basically like where it has been initiated, all the requests, where it has been sent, and what was the timing, how much time it has been taken, where when it was started. Again, as you can see above this tab, so this is how our request would be looking like. So if you can also check that when our HTML file and the JS file have been taken care of, when our CSS file have been taken care of. So basically we can see each and every step over here, at which instance of point we can our data is being available. So this is basically the whole timeline, and again we have the headers containing all the requests, type of request and the data that the requests have been contained. And again this is fetch XHR. So this is the main XHR stand for XML HTTP request. So this is the main tab that we are using. So basically when I click on click me, so it has sent an XHR request. How much time have it been taken? So basically, if I refresh this page and again go back to the network tab, and yeah, in the item dot, it have been sent a request of URL as well as endpoint as this that we have defined. It was a of get method. So basically we have a bunch of method available. So we have get, post, put, and delete. So these are the four common method that we will be using. Get method used for retrieval of the data. Post method is transferring the data from client to server, like transmission of the data, basically the term itself. But and again the update method is used for updating something, or update is also used as a put method. So basically a put method is used for like transferring the data, or updating the data at the server, and the delete method is used to delete any of the data from the server. So basically these are the four method. We can obviously use these four method uh, comparing from one another. We can use get as post method, we can use post as get method. We have bunch of stuff, but again the data transfer is again being changed. So post method is bit secured than get method. So then what is the status code? Status code basically whether the request is successful or not. So basically 200 means successful. So we have a bunch of status code, like the most common one is 404. So basically representing not found, when any of the stuff is not found from the server. And again we have a 500 denoting to an internal server error, when the server goes wrong. So at the time of YouTube, when the YouTube was not working at prior some months, so basically that was 500 error. So their server was not responding well. So basically there was some authentication issue going back, and what type of data and headers it have been taken. So you can neglect these type of stuff. So basically these headers are meant for authentication as well as cross-site scriptings. So what type of data that we get in response is a simple textual or the JSON data, and how we can see it. It in the preview tab, it basically visualize or beautify all the stuff that are visible over there. So we can display it, and again the initiator as well as the timing, how much time it have been taken to, like, the duration of the API of the queue, and again all the duration that have been taken into consideration, and how much time the request have been taken from client to server, and after processing then returning back to the client. So again, this is a simple developer tool, and the most important is the Postman. So Postman is a bit new concept, not for testing for the APIs. So we have a bunch of methods over here. So these are the common method: get, post, put, and delete. And we have a bunch of other methods too to be utilized when we are using or playing with APIs. So we will be neglecting all these methods, but we will be focusing on these four methods: get, post, put, and delete. And here is, so basically you can download the Postman from the Google Chrome or the Postman official website. So how we can test our APIs, like before integrating the API, APIs are tested, like whether the APIs is working properly, what type of response it is being like giving. So basically I would be copying this endpoint and pasting it in enter request URL. So if I, yeah, so if I just click on this enter request URL input and paste the URL over here, and when I click on send, so basically a simple get request have been sent for the data retrieval. And what type of data have been uh, given by the server is this product data containing the whole object that is being over here, along with an object containing array and again object. So again, I can also retrieve simple google.com from here. So what it return is a standard HTML document. So if I go to the preview, so basically I can preview the page, how the code, how the page would be looking like.